1956, there were 12,000 drive-ins in America. 95% of those are dead. And yet there are native Indians, the Crankaway Indians of Texas, who believe there is a spirit that lives on in these decayed temples where Americans once worshiped. They call it Wiskabanaha, or the spirit of blood, breast, and beast, or the 3 B's. What you are about to witness is a summoning of that spirit, a return to a part of the American heritage that has all but vanished. It's a heritage of drive-in movies, controversial movies, groundbreaking movies, the weird, the offbeat, the strange, and most of all, the sleazy. You are about to experience one of the sleaziest movies in the history of the world.
I don't know about you, when I see a sight like this along the American highway, I get kind of steamed. You know, there's not even any place where you can watch the classic movies anymore. Movies like Please Don't Eat My Mother and Gas Pump Girls and Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. You know, if they were to make blood-sucking freaks today, who knows if anybody would even get a chance to see it. Not to mention the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. At least Saw is still the king after all these years, but I'm determined to do more than that. This series will bring you more than 1,000 of the sleaziest drive-in movies ever released. And this project, at our current rate of release, will be finished in the year 2116. But see, that's how dedicated we are to the preservation of the American drive-in. Kind of makes you sick, don't it? Howdy, come on in, let me talk to you for a minute. This is my place here. You know what this is? Some people would call this a cheap dime store gadget, but in a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, this is a special effect. This is how you show somebody on a drug trip, or somebody that has psychic powers, or somebody that's just drunk or something. Remember how many 60s movies had these? Remember that movie, The Trip? See, if I did this for a long time, I could probably hypnotize you. But what happened is the movie that we're about to watch, it came out in the mid-60s, and it's called Something Weird. And it's about this guy who gets electrocuted, and that means good news and bad news. The good news is he can read the mind of everybody he meets. The bad news is his face is going to look like it's been smashed with a bag of ball bearings for the rest of his life. So his friends are very sensitive about it. They say things like, well, God only knows what he'll be able to do with a face like that, and you're a disgusting freak now. But see, then this witch comes to see him, and a witch doing a bad impression of the Wicked Witch of the West is what it is. In fact, I think Herschel cast this lady because she looked like the Wicked Witch of the West, and the witch says she'll trade him a new face for Nookie. See, she's horny, and so he gives up his sideshow job and goes to work doing a nightclub act and solving crimes for the police, and he becomes rich and famous. But when he starts to fall in love, the witch always shows up to remind him who he belongs to. And, well, actually, this story is way too complicated to tell, and I'm kind of forgetting most of it as I tell it. But it was written by this college professor named Jim Hurley, who really believed in ESP and psychic powers and stuff. He believed that if you were just watching a thing like this, you could probably get dizzy and like be on a drug trip or something. But he hired Herschel Gordon Lewis to put his beliefs on the screen. So that's how this movie came about. And the main reason we're including it in this series of the sleaziest movies in the history of the world is for one scene in there, and it's a great scene. It's a one-of-a-kind scene. It's the scene where the psychic is attacked by killer bed sheets. He's lying in bed trying to get some sleep, and suddenly he starts choking, and his blanket attacks him, and then his bed sheets attack him, and he wrestles around, rolls over and over and over and over. Well, you've just got to see it. I don't want to give it away. It's got some of the finest action sequences ever filmed in there. So, what we got here, let's kind of sum it up. We have 5 dead bodies. We have no breasts. We have some kung fu. one LSD trip, and of course 2 killer bed linen attacks in the classic movie where the title says it all. Something Weird is the name of it. You ever notice how they have these little bitty little square things on the edge of the film? It's real neat. It's like, it's weird, it's far out. Kind of enjoy it. Well, that was a good movie. I'm not sure exactly what happens there at the end of the movie, but it was a funny movie, wasn't it? They had those killer bed sheets in there. Wasn't that alone? Those killer bed sheets I thought were worth the price of admission, didn't you? See, in the 60s, they made movies like this. They made great movies. They weren't about anything, really. This is one of the few films made by Herschel Gordon Lewis that Herschel doesn't really like this movie. But when I asked him about it, I said, come on, Herschel, why don't you like that movie? I like that movie. But he said Jim Hurley, the producer, he really believed in psychic phenomena, and I was just not a true believer. And so I thought most of his script didn't make sense. But see, that's what I liked about it. It didn't make sense. I love that. But Herschel made the movie anyway, of course, because Herschel, he wouldn't make movies that violated his principles of good taste. However, he would make any movie for money. So he made a lot of truly strange movies like Monster A Go-Go. That was a good one. That was about this astronaut who goes into space, comes back as a 10-foot-high monster. Sin, Suffer, and Repent. That was a venereal disease BD movie. Alley Tramp. That was a good one. 16-year-old nymphomaniac goes crazy from too much sex. And finally, Herschel made a movie called Jimmy the Boy Wonder. It was a children's movie, a kid's movie. I'm proud of you, Herschel, for doing that. Herschel Gordon Lewis, the father of gore, the master of the despicable and the tasteless, actually made a children's movie. Let's give a little applause for Herschel for doing that. That was wonderful of Herschel. But that's another story. For now, this is Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that ding dong, the witch is dead. The falcon is molted. The fat man bowls alone. But the drive-in will never die. It won't. Love this one.